Hey everybody, it's the OMAD Dad. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, a channel that's dedicated to living the OMAD lifestyle or eating just one meal a day. Every so often we get some really great comments and questions in the comment section on these videos, and I try to, with your permission, I always contact you first, focus some of these here on the channel because it's a great opportunity for us to kind of discuss certain things, and maybe we can learn a little something in the process. And so what I have today is he wrote me a series of comments earlier in the week, or earlier in last week, sorry. With work been going crazy, as you can imagine, around the holidays. I'm just now getting around to it. But GDW Law is his name, and he brings up some really great points. So let's go into some of his comments. So he lives in France. His wife is American. He is from the UK. They're mostly trying to do intermittent fasting, and he's trying to switch over to OMAD. Travels to the US once a year, and he's noticing that portion sizes are way too big, and the problem with processed food. He said, please don't take what I'm going to write personally. I was particularly surprised to see so many overweight people during his last visit to the United States. It would seem that the general population in the US is unwell for so many reasons. What is the problem? Why do Americans have weight issues? Why are so many people on medication? I think a lot of the problems are about choice. The availability of healthy options are low, and Americans seem to be rewarded with bad choices. Everything is about max size, 2-to-1 or 3-to-1 ratios offering on foods with low nutritional benefits. In Europe, we're going to tax sugar in foods. It's already started. We have so many fast foods in France too, but when you drive to every small town, you'll start to see McDonald's on most main roads. So the American disease is already with us. We're getting fat too. It's all about eating calories without nutritional value. It makes me sad. Meanwhile, the big food resellers like supermarkets and fast food outlets have made huge profits. The truth is that they don't like OMAD. They can't entice us with a low-calorie snack because we don't snack. We just have one meal a day. I'm angry too. So God bless America. And it goes on to mention how the use of white flour and all of this processed food is just raising insulin. He is plant-based, his partner is flexitarian, and they only use whole grain flour. Same for pasta. They try to make as many of their own meals as they can. Good luck, everyone. Wow. So truthfully, GD, I don't know if I'm really qualified to answer all of your questions and all of your comments. I will say that if we could tackle this issue fully on this channel, there'd probably be a book and probably a Nobel Prize. So regardless, I want to I wrote down some notes, and I want to go kind of over that as well, because I have family that come from Europe. Being a chef, you're trained in the classic French brigade system of doing things. I have a love for Italy as well, and I've heard this from a lot of people who are from Europe, who come over here, or who travel to Europe a lot and come back over to the United States, and they talk about how unhealthy we are. And it's a little side note too. I'm involved in pre-kindergarten schooling system. It's a government program here in our local area. I run the food program. We do have a certified nutritionist, and she has told me that when she was going to college to get her degree in nutrition, the statistics were always that about roughly a third of America were obese or overweight, so roughly 30 to 33%. New findings that were released now in studies are showing that America has hit the 40% mark. That is massive. That is horrible. 40% of Americans obese or overweight. And yet, I just pulled up a statistic the other day, as I looked it up online, something to the extent of, in 2019 alone, there were 63 or 64 million gym memberships. The different gyms, health clubs, whatever you want to call it. It's quite staggering. So obviously something that we're doing is, we're not doing something right in this country. We're not making the right connections. I don't know if it's entirely a food thing. I don't. But I've written down a few points that I'd like to bring up and discuss on this channel, and I'd love to know your thoughts as well out there, and you can leave me some comments below or email me, whatever you like to do. But number one, we have a love for cheap fast food. It's not, as GD mentions, it's becoming more prevalent now, especially in the smaller towns around Europe, whether it's France, Italy, different spots around Europe, and even the globe. You're starting to see more of these corporate chain fast food places coming in. After all, more people are traveling around the world than ever before, so you're seeing people coming over to America, looking at American customs and having a desire for that when they go back home to their country, a little spot in the world. But here in America, we do have a love for cheap fast food. We're always in a hurry. We always have a million things going on, so we don't have time for anything, and we have to eat all the time. We have to keep eating and keep snacking because that's what the nutritionists and that's what the government is telling us is the healthy thing to do. So because of that, people are looking for cheap food, and we also have this thing in America where it's like we need to get a great bargain. Like we feel like we need to get our money's worth, you know. So if we sit down and, like, sometimes when you go to France, you'll have several courses, like a traditional French restaurant, several small courses, because it's just how they like to eat. They like to eat small amounts of many different things, and we like to eat a large amount of just a few things, and we value more the leftover aspect, you know, like it's like getting that bargain. It's like, okay, I have a meal, I go out to a chain restaurant, I have my meal, and I want to be able to bring it home and get another meal or two out of it. And I remember it was a big thing back in especially like the late 70s into about the mid 90s or so. Some of the restaurants that were just having these massive portions, and you know, I used to see it, you'd bring home the doggy bags and they'd just sit there in the refrigerator for days on end. You couldn't eat it before it went bad. A lot of those restaurants are long gone because they realize that it just doesn't work, and you're basically giving people free groceries for a while. But that sort of mentality is kind of stuck with America. You know, we haven't gone. For me, if I go out to eat somewhere, I'd rather have a small plate of something very richly flavored, very nicely presented, that tastes amazing, than have this huge portion of something that's kind of okay, and now I'm stuck with it and I feel like I have to eat it for a month of Sundays. But either way, we love cheap fast food, and you could tell because most communities, most towns out there will have many McDonald's, many Burger Kings, many Taco Bells, and you name it. My town where I live, I'm not going to mention the name for privacy issues, but there really aren't even that many restaurants in town anymore, the actual sit-down restaurants. We've got 3 McDonald's, we've got several Burger Kings, we've got Taco Bell, we've got all the fast food places, but if you want to go out to an actual restaurant, you have to go to some of the surrounding towns, and it's kind of sad. Not good. Number 2, less movement. We drive everywhere. It is a fact that people in Europe tend to walk a hell of a lot more than we do here in America. We drive everywhere. We live in this great big, we have this great land mass over here in America, and as a result, especially for work, we drive everywhere. We drive to the market, we drive to the store. Sometimes we could go, you know, to a corner store or go and walk, and it would be about 1.5 miles, maybe one way, and it would be a nice workout for us, and do a little bit of shopping every day. That's another thing. In Europe, people tend to do their shopping more frequently because they are walking, so they get a little bit of groceries at a time, have those, and then everything stays fresh. But here, we go to the supermarket, we drive there. So it could be 20, 30 miles away or more, and depending on where you live, you might be in the boondocks somewhere, nobody really knows. So we're driving everywhere, and we're just not walking as much, and it's a bad habit. And people in Europe tend to be walkers. They tend to walk wherever they're going. Just making some general observations here, right? Number 3, we tend to eat until we're full, not to the point of us not being hungry. In America, we have a habit of saying, "Are you full?" We ask our children this, you know, we even say in OMAD, you know, you should eat until you're full. In France, I know it's a thing, usually in Italy as well, other parts of Europe and the world, people don't eat until they're full, they eat until they're no longer hungry. And there is a big difference between the two. Try it sometime. It wouldn't take that much food for you to no longer be hungry. It takes quite a bit of food for you to be full, because a lot of people have this impression that in order to be full, you kind of have to be stuffed. And so the difference between the two could be 500 to 1,000 calories, maybe even more. That's how sad this is. So that's a lot of extra food. All those extra calories, a little bit here, a little bit there, every single day, compiled up, that's why people just get fatter and fatter and heavier every single day. Whereas if you just sat down, ate slowly, take your time, didn't have distractions while you were eating so that you could focus on the food, your digestion, what you're doing, you would see that after about half of what you normally would eat would actually fill you up. Sorry, I should say, would actually get you to a point of no longer being hungry, and you would be satisfied. Because it does take about 20 minutes or so, roughly, for your stomach to, let your brain know that you've actually eaten enough and you're full. But if you're shoveling in really fast, and you'll never get that signal in time, or when you get it, at that point you've eaten way too much and you're just stuffed. So that's another point too. And then another thing on this channel too that I like to emphasize is, I tell people, often people will write me like, oh, I had this or that for an OMAD and I'm worried I'm not getting too many calories. Don't worry about it. Just eat until you are satisfied. You want to be functionally full. What I mean by that is you're no longer hungry. You do feel full, but you're not stuffed to the point where you can't do anything, you couldn't move around. And you should get to a point where after a couple of hours, about 2 hours or so, you feel lighter, you're able to do things again. You shouldn't have these huge insulin crashes and the spikes. That's what you're going for. And there's a that's my point. There's a stark difference between eating until you are full and eating until you are no longer hungry. Number 5, we have a sugar addiction. And in other countries, it's not that they don't use sugar or don't have it, but they do it intentionally, and it's more of a treat. Of all of the people who I know of that have come from different spots of Europe, their main dessert over there is just fresh seasonal fruit, whatever they have. And then usually on a weekend, they'll either go to a local bakery, or another thing I hear is becoming big, like this family tradition, and particularly in France, is people baking on the weekends. Especially if you have children, you get them involved. It gets them, used to going to a store, buying ingredients, making things from scratch. In doing so, which I've recommended on this channel, that if you're going to have junk food, making your own, it's going to taste better. So it's going to fill you up more. So you're going to, by nature, eat less, especially because you're not going to go through all of the steps between shopping and preparing and baking and cooking and go through all of that so that you can eat it within about 30 seconds. And it's going to be this kind of like a natural stopgap to where if you have to make everything from scratch, it's going to take a certain amount of time to prepare. So by nature, you're just not going to have all of those junky foods as often as you normally would if you were just going to go to a corner store and buy ready-made cookies or chips or whatever it happens to be. But we do have a sugar addiction. I mean, I'll be in line, and I would get like an iced tea for my wife, and whether it's at Dunkin' or Starbucks, wherever it is, and pretty much 98% of the time, the person in front of me, I look at the drinks that people are getting, and they're basically just melted ice creams with whipped cream on top. They get these iced coffees with tons of cream and sugar in it, the whipped cream on top, the caramel and chocolate drizzles. It's a dessert, folks. That drink you're getting to hydrate yourself is a 700-calorie dessert. We have a sugar addiction in this country. We put sugar in everything. All of our processed foods have it because these companies know how our brains work and how our bodies work. And let's face it, it's addicting. And when you take the fat out of food, which they've done historically here since the 80s, because it was a big anti-fat campaign, you take the fat out of food, it tastes like cardboard. So you just pump up the sugar a little bit, and it sweetens everything up, and it, appeases people's taste buds. But we do have a sugar addiction, and I'm not saying that, especially for me, I'll ever get rid of sugar, but you have to be kind of proactive and responsible with it. And I have videos on this channel about that as well. We have a lack of quality food, and We do have that's another point, is our lack of quality food. You look at France, you look at Italy, beef is not really big over in these countries because they just don't have the land. When they raise their cattle over there, for the most part, they are grass-fed because that is, after all, their natural diet. And of course, cows take up a lot of space. They need a lot of space, especially if you're going to feed them grass. So here in America, what we do to get really, really cheap, lower grade quality beef, but it's cheap, is we feed them with grain, and that changes the structure. It changes the chemical compounds, kind of, if you will, of the beef that we should be eating. It has a higher omega-6 versus omega-3 ratio, which means it's more inflammatory than it should be. But animals and a lot of food products like cheese, different things that they make over in Europe that they're known for, they take a great pride for. It's available to everybody. Here in America, we're loaded with food deserts. We're loaded with package stores. We have some areas of the country that are very difficult. It's very hard and very difficult to get decent quality food that's affordable for people who are on lower incomes. So as a result, they're left getting whatever processed food their SNAP benefits can get them, or whatever they can afford if they're not on SNAP or using WIC. And it's a recipe for a disaster. Number 6, these excess medications that everybody is taking in America, as you mentioned, GD, all have these side effects. So you start taking one for one thing because maybe you have a crappy diet and it's leading to some symptoms. You start taking one medicine that has side effects, so you have to take another medicine to deal with those side effects. And then after a while, some of the medicines stop working as well, so you have to go to another medicine. I realize now, looking back, like, I'm kind of a freak in the sense that, you know, I'm not on any, I mentioned this before, that I'm not on any prescriptions, and I'm glad I'm not. You have to do whatever you can do to make sure you're not sick and you're not dependent upon medications all the time. Like, people my age, some are even younger, who are on 3, 4, 5 prescriptions. It's crazy. It's just not a long-term solution for people. It's toxic. It helps in the short term, but the long term is you finding out what is the real problem, the root of the problem, and fixing it. So that's another reason why Americans, for the most part, end up maybe becoming fat and sick. And not to mention that there are some medicines that a lot of their side effects, they make it almost impossible for you to lose weight. I've worked with people that are doing everything by the books and on paper should be skinny as a rail, and yet they end up gaining weight. It's because of all of the prescriptions they're on. And you know, I have no way of telling people to stop taking medications. I'm not a doctor. That's not what I'm going to do. But it's something that they have to become aware of and talk to their doctor about. And lastly, I kind of hinted on this in one of the other points, is our love for snacking and our drink culture. Snacking used to never be a thing. And if I reviewed the book 3 Squares on here, and I really recommend people going out and reading that book. You can find it on Amazon. It's a great book about the history of different meals in our culture, particularly here in America. And the 4th meal, which has been coming out, is just snacking. Snacking has become like this subculture here in America. And you know our stance here on this channel about snacking. Snacking is one of the main reasons that make you fat. Because we don't do it like in other countries. You may see them snack maybe like 4 in the afternoon or something, and maybe something very small. It's usually something fresh, like a piece of fruit or whatever. Here in America, it tends to be junky, carby, just garbage, and we have it too often throughout the day. As I mentioned before, our drink culture, we're not just drinking water. Other cultures put a lot of emphasis on drinking fresh, clean water. We tend to not have that here in America. I mean, people do drink a lot of water in America, but nowhere near other countries. You know, and as I said, you know, coffee is no longer a coffee here in America. You're going to Dunkin', I'm seeing people with like these basically melted ice creams, and they're really desserts. So I don't know if that's everything, JD, but I will say that All of those points, in my opinion, contribute massively to the differences that you're going to see in, like, say, Europe and compared to America. And as you're making a very keen point, a lot of the issues that they're having here in America, a lot of the problems we're having, are now being exported to other countries in other regions of the world. That's why I'm making the case, at least on this channel, that you do what you need to do so that you're not a statistic. You need to make sure that you are in a healthy weight range, that all of your health markers are where they're supposed to be, that you are functioning as a human being the way you should be functioning, and living your life free of food addictions, free of any other addictions or any problems in your life. Take the bull by the horn, take the reins, do what you have to do. We are coming very, very close to New Year's 2021. I don't know about you. I'm happy to get rid of 2020. I'm good with 2020. So I implore you, I know that the holiday time is here right now. You're probably distracted if you're brand new to OMAD and you haven't tried it before. I urge you, make a commitment, try OMAD, get your health and your life in order for your own sake. I'm very adamant about that, and I'm glad that OMAD has been a part of my life. It's going to always be a part of my life because it's what works for me. It's not the only thing in the world that works, but it really does wonders. And you can just read the comments on here, and from the years I've been on here, of everybody who's come here and who has tried it and is amazed at how much better they feel, how much lower their inflammation levels are, how they're easily losing weight and enjoying the foods that they like at the same time. For the first time in their life, people are feeling like they are truly in control of their habits, of their eating, of their drinking, you name it. And it's going into other areas of their life too. So GD, I hope that was helpful for you. I'd love to hear your guys' comments out there, what you think of some of my observations. Again, I don't think it's a complete list, but it's what I've observed and from talking to other people and from what I know. So leave a comment below or a question. We'll get to it. And that's going to be it. I am on vacation next week, which is the week after Christmas. So I should be able to pump out at least another video too, hopefully. But if not, I hope you guys all have a very happy, safe holiday season. I hope you have a really great and happy new year. And let's get 2020 out of here. Let's just make it a distant memory and let's start 2021. I'm excited for it. I hope you are too. So that's it for me. I hope you guys have a great week. A very happy OMAD, and be well.